Ma'am, if possible, can we revise French Revolution? I
French
have
Revolution.
exam tomorrow, ma'am.
Tomorrow you have a test.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just a minute. Just let me take out the notes. Let's wait for others to join and then we will begin, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Good evening, Sampath.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. How are you?
Fine, ma'am.
Okay, good, good. So, on request, we are going to revise the French Revolution today. Actually, we were doing political science, constitutional design, and as per now, has a test tomorrow, so we will do French Revolution. You okay with it, right?
Yes, ma'am. I also have exam and portion in French Revolution.
Okay, fine, fine. So we will do French Revolution. Hi, Shravan. Hi, Shravan. Are you there?
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. So we are going to do French Revolution. Okay.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, fine. Just a minute. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So we have French Revolution. So we'll do a quick revision. You see my screen, right? So first of all, we will understand the beginning of the chapter. We are going to talk about the French society. Okay, now in the late 18th century, it is in what was the year? 1774. Okay, now King Louis the 16th, he is of about 20 years old, and he is from the Bourbon family, and he is married to the Austrian princess Mary Antoinette. Okay, let me highlight that for you. Yeah, Louis 16, and he's of the only 20 years old, and he's married to Princess Mary Antoinette. Oh, now upon this, he finds out that he has an empty treasure. Okay, and why was this? Because the war had, there had been war had drained the financial resources of France. Now, added to this, the cost of maintaining on an extravagant court. Okay, they are of course big kings, so they had extravagant expenses in the palace of Versailles. So Louis the 16th, he was when he gained the throne, he had also taken up some problems. So let us talk about the states over there, that how the society was divided. The first state was there was the first state, and then there was the second state, and then there was the third state. Under the first state were the clergy, and the second state was the nobility, and the third state contained the rest of the society, that is the big businessmen, merchants, courts, officials, lawyers. They contain the peasants, the artisans, and also the small peasants, the landless laborers and servants. All were under the third state. Okay, so this is important. You have to understand how the society was divided. Okay, so as long now we have seen that he was greeted by an empty treasurer because of long years of war that had been mounted, that had mounted the debt to more than how many? What it was about 2 billion livres. Livres, that was the currency of France. Okay, which was discontinued in 1794. Before that, it was the livre. So, to meet the regular expenses of maintaining the army, the court, the government officers, and the universities, King Louis the 16th was compelled to increase taxes. Okay, now, so we have spoken about the three categories. Okay, now what were the causes for the discontent? First of all, he was compelled to increase taxes. Now, this was the first major cause of the discontent. The first thing was social inequality. Let me give you there. Yeah. So the causes for the French, for you see my screen, right? Yeah, Pranav? Okay, the causes for the French Revolution. Why was there a need for for the French Revolution for a revolution? Was the first thing was the social inequality. The French society in the 18th century was divided into three states, like we had seen in the picture. The nobility and the third state, the first two states, that is the clergy and the nobility, they enjoyed certain privileges by birth, and they were exempted from, they didn't have to pay any taxes. Okay, now the third state comprises the businessmen, merchants, and the rest of society. They were the ones who had to pay taxes to both the nobilities and the clergy. So the social inequality was one reason. Next comes the political causes. Long years of war had drained the financial resources of France. Okay, now they had about 2 billion livres of debt, and to meet their expenses, the King Louis had increased taxes. Okay, this was the second reason. The first reason I told you about, social inequality. Second was the political reason, that was the palace was drained of its was under debt, and the king increased the taxes. Third comes the economical problem. The population of France also increased from 23 million. There was a boost in the population also. There was a boom in the population. It increased from 23 million to 715 to 28 million in 1789. Okay, now the food grains were now in great demand. Everybody needed to be fed. Okay, the price of bread shot up. Okay, and you see the food became, you can say the food became expensive. Okay, and wages did not keep pace with the rising prices. Said this led to subsistence crisis. Subsistence crisis is the term we use when we have the lack of necessities. I think we have here somewhere, what is the subsistence crisis? I, I, okay, subsistence crisis, you understand, right? It is the crisis of the necessity item, that is food and water. So people began to face food crisis. So this was economical. There was strong middle class. A new middle class emerged, educated. The people, as the print revolution started, people began to read. They began to become educated, and they also did business. Okay, and because of this business, they became wealthy during the 18th century. Now they believe that no group in society, of course, when the person is educated, he begins to speak, he begins to reason. Okay, that no group in society should be given privileges by birth. Every privilege should be earned, and people should be treated equally. Okay, now the ideas of equality and freedom were put forward by philosophers. Because of the print media, everybody philosophers emerged. Now this was a new category of people, new society that had emerged, that was the educated, that was wealthy, and they demanded equality, and they demanded freedom. Okay, now the ideas of philosophers were discussed intensively in saloons, coffee houses, and had spread among people. Immediate causes was, what was the immediate causes of the French Revolution? That was on 5th of May 1789, Louis XVI called together an assembly of states. Okay, where he was going to propose the increased taxes. Okay, now it's general to pass the proposal of new taxes. Third state protested, okay, against this proposal, as each state have one vote. See, there was the first state was there, they got one vote. Okay, now the second state was there, they got one vote. Okay, now these were both the nobles and the clergies. Now there was a big majority in the third state. Okay, but they only got only one vote. So this was very truly unjust. Okay, so whatever the king wanted, the majority would be always of the king. So there was a protest. The third state protested this proposal. Okay, so what is it? The king rejected this. The third state protested against this proposal, but as each state have one vote. The king rejected this appeal. They walked out of the assembly. They walked out. Okay, now this was the outburst of the French Revolution. So far, everybody understand?
Ma'am, can you explain immediate cause again, ma'am?
The immediate cause, let me take it from the textbook. Okay, just a minute. Yeah, this was one. Okay, the first, this was it. So this was the immediate cost you can talk about here. On 5th of May 1789, Louis the 16th, he called together an assembly of the states, okay, and because he had the proposal to pass new taxes. He wanted to propose the new taxes. Now, a resplendent hall in Versailles was prepared to host the delegates. The first and the second states, they sent 300 representatives each. Okay, they were seated in rows facing each other on two sides. Okay, now while though 300 were there, now while the 600 members of the, there were 600 members in the third state, but they were given only one vote. Okay, they had to stand at the back. Okay, so this was another humiliation that they had faced. The third state was represented by its more prosperous and educated members. The peasants, artisans, and women, they were also denied entry into the hall. They were not even permitted to enter the hall. However, these people, they had written their grievances. Okay, they had written their grievances and demands and listed over 40,000 letters which the representatives had brought with them. Now, so far you understand what had happened in that hall. 300 were there. The first and the second state, they were very luxuriously seated and they faced each other. While the third state that contained about 600 members, they were made to stand at the back, and they were the ones who were educated and who were a little wealthy. But those artisans and landless laborers and women, they were also denied entry into the hall. But these people, they had written about 40,000 letters which the representatives of the third state they had brought in with them. Okay, now when the voting had begun, Louis was determined to follow the same procedure that I will put up a proposal, and the first and the second state will going to vote in favor of him, while the third state's vote is not going to be counted because he is out of majority. Okay, but this time too, Louis was determined to continue the same practice, but members of the third state demanded that voting now be conducted by
Ma'am,
the assembly as a whole.
ma'am,
Yeah,
can I go to washroom?
sure you can. So they put up a demand that the election should be held at one per member, one vote. But but the Queen Louis was determined that one state, one vote. You understand, Pranav? So
Yes, ma'am.
this was the one of the democratic principles put forward by the philosophers like Rousseau in his book. This was the proposal made by the philosophers. So now what happened? The king rejected this proposal. Okay, and in protest, the third state members, they walked out of the assembly in protest. Okay, so this is what happened on the outbreak. Now what happened, the representative of the third state, they viewed themselves as spokesmen for the whole French nation. They were the one who had written something, they were the one who spoke about something. Okay, though there are many people who were not doing who were not aware of what is happening, what this nobility and clergy are, how they are exploiting them. So what happened on 20th of June, they assembled in the hall of indoor tennis court, grounds of the Versailles. Okay, they declared themselves, declared themselves National Assembly, and they swore not to disperse till they had drafted a constitution for France. So this was the outbreak of the revolution. Okay, you understand?
Yes.
You understand the outbreak?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Ma'am, how many taxes were there for paying?
How many taxes were there? What was the taxes that he had proposed? It is not there. Let me look in here. So he had increased taxes, but it is not written how much how much tax he had increased. So it is only that the third state had to pay taxes, and the first state and the second state, they were exempted from the taxes. They didn't have to pay taxes, but in fact they enjoyed the privileges.
Okay.
Okay, let us talk. Yeah, you have to say something.
No.
Okay, so this time too we have spoken about the outbreak. Now the cause of discontent. We'll talk in detail about the first. So yeah, the taxes. Let us talk about the taxes. The first and the second state, they enjoyed many privilege, exemption from taxes. Only the third state paid taxes, and the church collected taxes called teeth, TITHE. They collected taxes called the teeth. Where is it? Yeah, yeah. Okay, the church too extracted its share of taxes called teeth from the peasant, and finally all members of the third state had to pay taxes to the state. These called a direct tax called CL, CL, CL. Okay, and a number of indirect taxes which were levied on the articles of everyday consumption like salt or tobacco. The burden of financing activities of the state taxes was borne by the third state alone. Okay. Now you can have there's a picture here, and here this shows how the clergy or the third state people, they had to come, and they have to come with the taxes. They pay taxes. They also give gifts also, and so now the nether. Now let us understand what was the discontent. Why were they not happy in the French during the French rule? Okay, the population of the French, like I told you, the population. Okay, the population grew from 23 million to in 715 to 28 million in 1789. Okay, and now this led to a rapid increase in the demand for food. Now the production of food was not so high, and the people did not earn as much. Okay, so the price of bread went up. Okay, and this was, of course, this was a staple diet of the majority of the people. And now most workers were employed as workers in workshops whose owners they had fixed wages, and they could not afford their bread even. Okay, now so the gap between what happened, the rich became richer. Okay, the poor became so poor. These things became worse whenever the drought or hail reduced the harvest, and this led to subsistence crisis. This can come into as a question, a short note on subsistence crisis, or what is subsistence crisis. So subsistence crisis, you see here, an extreme situation where the basic means of livelihood are endangered. Okay, so that is called substance crisis. I mean, the person is not able to eat or drink water. Okay, so how the substance crisis? We have a bad harvest, and the poor could no longer buy bread. Okay, other than this, there was disease and epidemics, and there was bad harvest, you can say. So this was you have to fill in the blank, or just you can leave it. Okay, now in the past, the peasants and the workers had participated in revolts against increasing taxes and food scarcity, but they lacked the means and programs to carry out full-scale measures that could bring about a change in the in the social and economic order. This was left to those groups within the third state who had become prosperous and had access to education and new ideas. So when they assembled in the tennis court, there they sat down and they designed a constitution for France. Okay. So the 18th century witnessed the emergence of social groups. Okay, that was the middle class, who earned their wealth through an expanding overseas trade and from the manufactures of goods such as woolen and silk textiles that were either exported or brought by the richer members of society. In addition to merchants and manufacturers, the third estate included professions and such as lawyers and administrative officials. Now, these were among them. There were also philosophers. That was John Locke and Jean Jacques Rousseau. So these were the ones who sat down and talked about the constitution. So it was Rousseau who carried the idea forward, proposing a form of government based on social contract between people and their representatives. So let's just leave out the model of okay, the ideas of philosophers were discussed intensively in saloons and coffee houses and spread among people through books and newspapers. So this is where how the middle class they emerged and they interacted. Now we have spoken about the outbreak. Okay, now what they did. Okay, now while they formed the National Assembly, okay, was busy at Versailles drafting a constitution, the rest of the France seethed in turmoil. Okay, a severe winter had meant a bad harvest, and the price of bread rose, and often bakers exploited the situation and hoarded supplies. Okay, so this was the reason that people went hungry, and there was unrest in the rest of France. After spending hours in long queues at the bakeries, crowds of angry women stormed into the shop. At the same time, the king ordered troops to move into Paris. On July 14th, the agitated crowd stormed and destroyed the Bastille castle palace. Okay, so this was the outbreak. You have any questions so far?
No, ma'am.
Okay, now in the countryside, rumors spread from village to village that the lords of the manor had hired bands of brigades who were on their way to destroy the ripe crops. So rumors was a major cost. Okay, so people got to know that the troops of the king has hired, because they had have hired an army to come and destroy our harvest. So we are already hungry, so rest of our food also will be destroyed. So what happens, so instead of, before we die, we will also compile together, accumulate together, and they attacked on the palace of Bastille, and they took the king and his queen into they captivated the king and the queen. So they caught in a frenzy of fear. Peasants in several districts seized hoes and pitchforks and attacked statues, that is the small castles kind. They looted hoarded gains and burned down documents containing records of manorial dues. Okay, so where the taxes and all were maintained, although they burned out all those things, a large number of nobles fled from their homes, many of them migrating to neighboring countries. So they fled the country because the people had had it enough. Okay, so they had been starved, they were thirsty, they were hungry, so they attacked, and upon that they were attacked upon, So it was enough what they had, and they stormed into and they attacked into everywhere. Now faced with the powers of revolting subjects, Louis XVI finally accorded a recognition to the National Assembly and accepted the principle of his power would from now be checked by a constitution. So what happened? Louis XVI, what happened? Because of all this revolt, he agreed that they gave a recognition to National Assembly that was led by the middle class. Okay. Now National Assembly was, but there was a constitution who would approve what they are trying to put up. Still there was a check on them. So now what happened? On the night of 4th of August 1789, the Assembly passed a decree abolishing the feudal system of obligations and taxes. Okay. Now members of the clergy too were forced to give up their privileges. So now they were asked that you will not have so much of privileges. You should be giving it up. So thieves, that is the taxes, were abolished, and lands owned by the church were confiscated. It was taken away by the National Assembly. As a result, the government acquired assets worth at least 2 billion livres. Okay, now what happened? How the France becomes a national constitutional monarch.
Mom,
Yeah,
Mom, can you explain Reign of Terror and Napoleon Bonaparte?
Napoleon Bonaparte. Maximilian.
Rise of Napoleon Bonaparte.
Yeah, that was the post of. I think we don't study Napoleon in a very detail in this chapter. But let me tell you about Napoleon Bonaparte. So Napoleon Bonaparte, he was born in 1804. Just a minute, let me open this chapter of Napoleon.
Twenty-third page number.
Which page is it? 23rd. Yeah, we have a conclusion. So he was born on 1804, Napoleon. Okay, now he crowned himself the Emperor of France, and he set out what at first he was very praised for. Okay, now he set out conquering the neighboring European countries, dispossessing dynasties and creating kingdoms where he had placed members of his family. Okay, Napoleon saw his role as modernizer of Europe. Now, at first he was praised of why? Because he wherever he went, he abolished monarchy. Okay, so now people thought that it is going to be the rule of the people over there, but it was not so. He was not. He was kind of a conqueror. He conquered the European and he placed his family members over there. Okay, now he introduced, he did promote building business over there. He introduced many laws such as protection of private property and a uniform system of weights, okay, and measures provided by the decimal system. So weights and measures was introduced by him. Now, initially, many people saw Napoleon as a liberator who would bring freedom for the people, but soon Napoleon's armies came to be viewed everywhere as an invading force, or you can say a conqueror. Okay, now he was finally defeated in Waterloo in 1815. Okay, why were there unrest? Because first of all, his army, they began to torture, you can say, the people over there. and also because he was his main aim was in conquering the neighboring countries. So everybody were forced to join the army. So this was something that the people did not like. The idea of liberty and democratic rights were the most important legacy of the French Revolution. These spread from France to the rest of the Europe during the 19th century, where feudal system were abolished. Colonized people revoked the ideas of freedom from bondage into their movement to create a sovereign nation state. Now, Tipu Sultan and Ram Mohan Roy are two examples of individuals who responded to the ideas coming from the Revolution of France. See, the French Revolution is very important because this was, you can say, this was the founder of all revolution. This was the founder of. Let us talk about Rosebery now. Okay, forget Okay, now the period between 1793 and 1794 is referred as the Reign of Terror. Okay, Robespierre, okay, he followed a policy of severe control. Although people saw he was the one who abolished who put a control to the monarch, but he followed a very severe control. You can say severe control and punishment. All those whom he saw as enemies of the republic, that was the ex-nobles or clergy and even members of other political parties, even the members of his own party who did not agree with him, they were what? They were arrested, they were imprisoned, and then they were tried by revolutionary tribunals. And if the court found them guilty, they were sent to Gulichand. Gulichand means their head was cut by, you can see there was a Gulichand. Let me just tell you what is a Gulichand. Yeah. Okay, it was something like, yeah, it was something like there is a blade here. Okay, and it is hanging on this thing, and then there is a person whose head is put over here. Okay, and then the head is, this is dropped by force and the head is cut off. So this was the punishment that was started in the French, and Robespierre had started it. Even the even the king and her queen and his queen was also guillotined. Okay, the guillotine is a device consisting of two poles and a blade. There are two poles here. Okay, and then there is a blade here. There's a big blade here that is dropped into the head, with which a person is beheaded. It was named after Dr. Gulichoni, who invented it. Okay, now Robespierre's government issued laws placing a maximum ceiling on wages and prices. Meat and bread were rationed. Ration means only one person will be given a certain amount of bread. No matter how much he pays, he will be one family will be given only certain amount of bread and wheat. So this was rationed. The peasants were forced to transport their grains to the cities and sell it at a fixed price fixed by the government. So they was this was the harassment by Robespierre, the reign of terror. They were not allowed to fix their prices. The use of more expensive white flour was forbidden. Okay, now in today we have white flour is cheaper, and in fact brown rice and brown attire is expensive. So in those time, white flour was expensive. So this was forbidden, and all citizens were required to eat the pain this is a French word, equality bread. Okay, a loaf made by whole wheat. And equality was also sought to be practiced through the forms of speech and addresses. Now the traditional forms of speech and addresses were changed. Like first there was for monsieur, you said it was a sir, and madame means a madam for all French men and women. So this was changed to Sayotine and Sayotini. Sayotine and Sayotini means a citizen. So they were, instead of calling Sir, Monsieur, and Madame for Madam, they were called Sayotine and Sayotini. that is citizen. Just understand, try to remember the spelling. It is Saito Yen, Y-E-N, Saito Yen, and Saito Yeni by double N-E. Okay. So churches were shut down and their buildings were converted into barracks or offices. So now nobody wanted, now in his, during his reign, people were against this religion. Okay. So Prosper pursued his policies so relentlessly that even his own supporters demanded modernization. Now, finally, he was convicted at the court in July 1794, and on the next day, he too was sent to guillotine. Okay. You can do. We have done almost all the chapter. We have left out role of women and a few points that you can do. I think on your own. We are out of time. Okay, and best of luck for your test. Anybody has anything, any question to ask? I'm ready to take up questions.
No.
Okay. Okay, then we'll end the class now. Bye. Best of luck for your
Thank you, ma'am.
test tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay.